Okay, welcome everybody. I am so excited to dig into week 2 and really get clear about what creating content really means. So let's jump in. Creating content. This is what we're focusing on today. But before we get into that, I want to just check in. How was last week? What did you notice? What maybe got in the way of you putting your 20 minutes in? What was a success and what was a challenge? So feel free to, can I see the chat from this? Yes. So you're welcome to pop it into the chat. You're welcome to just unmute yourself and be brave and share what your experiences were. I would love to hear and maybe chat with somebody just about what they noticed when they were intentional about spending 20 minutes with their social media in a really intentional way. This is the joy of Zoom, this awkward moment where we wait and see who wants to share. I know that when I first started doing this, it was I was surprised at how much I could get done when I put a timer on and was really intentional about how I was spending my time. I also found that it was hard to do if I didn't schedule it in. And so scheduling it in became really important because even though it's only 20 minutes, I just found that I was kind of building my business by accident, right? Like I wasn't really intentional. It was just like when I had space, when I had time, I kind of fit it in. And that worked for me. That served me for a really long time. But what I find that when I build my business on purpose, when I build my business with intention, it comes across a lot clearer. It creates movement. It actually moves that needle in my business rather than I'm just kind of like throwing things out there. So those are some of the things that I really noticed, that it was hard sometimes to really fit that 20 minutes in. But when I scheduled it, it made a big difference. When I put a timer on, it made a big difference because it was really easy to go over that 20 minutes. It's really easy to put in a lot more time, especially if you get scrolling and distracted with all of the noise within social media. And so setting that timer was really important for me. And then, setting the timer really helped keep me really focused, knowing that I had 20 minutes. I'm just going to focus. And then after that, if I want to entertain myself or take time within social media for other reasons outside of my business, then I could do that. Because how often are we on social media telling ourselves that we're working, but we're really not? Right? So as we kind of go through tonight, if you're wanting to share, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear anything that kind of got in the way or that was super helpful or things that you were surprised about. Feel free to pop it into the chat and I will keep an eye on it, or just hop yourself off mute. Sometimes really participating within it can be that shift that you really need, right? So feel free to do that. I'd love to hear from you guys. So let's dig into creating content. So we talked about this last week, this 5 pillars of content. Who has created their 5 pillars of content? Who has really clear on what these, on what the pillars are? Sorry, I'm really bad at like trying to read the chat and be present on here. I'm just gonna own it. So I really want you to take a minute right now and get really clear about what those 5 pillars of content are. So just to review, these are things that you enjoy. These are things that you want to share on social media, because here is the myth, is that we sometimes think if we are living our lives out loud on social media that we have to bear all, we have to share everything. And that can sometimes be uncomfortable. So you get to choose actually what parts of your life you want to share with your audience and your followers. And so you get to choose which parts you want to share. You get to choose the topics that you want to talk about. So I really encourage you to think about, how do you enjoy spending your days? Do you go for walks? Do you walk your dog? Do you go for hikes? Do you garden? Do you parent, what are the things that you do that you could create content around and share with your audience? So one of these pillars is going to be your business. So I know a lot of you in here with Young Living. I know that some people are with other companies or doing like their own small businesses. So whatever this looks like for you, one of these pillars is going to be your business. So either your products or your business opportunity. And then you're going to have 4 others to talk about other things in your life. So I want you to take a moment right now and actually write those down. Because it's so easy to sit in here and watch this and be like, oh, that's a really great idea. I'm going to do that. And then never make space to do it. So right now, I want you to write down what your 5 pillars are. Now we're going to use these 5 pillars of content for all of the content that we're going to create. So whether that be stories, posts, reels, all of the different content they're going to be within these 5 pillars. So this is really, really important to spend time deciding what these pillars are. The beautiful thing is that these can change as your interests change, as your life stage changes. These pillars can obviously always change with you, but it's good to be really clear about what they are. What are you wanting to share with your audience? Oops. Okay, so this I hear so often. So I want to use social media to share about my product, about my business, but I don't want to be salesy. Like, who can relate with that? This held me back for a really, really long time. Like, I want to do this as a business. I want to share these products because I know that they can be life-changing for so many others, but I don't want to be salesy. So I don't want to be that girl. I don't want people to be running from me or like a big sigh when they see my posts again. And so here is the secret. When you share your story, when you share your experience, that's not being salesy. It's salesy when you're giving facts, when you're just giving facts about the product and not talking about your relationship with it. When there's no emotion there, it feels salesy. So if you don't want to be salesy, get really good at telling stories. And that's what tonight is all about. So talk about what you have noticed when you've used the products or when you've experienced the business opportunity, why you choose it. And then others will naturally feel that connection. They'll feel that emotion behind it, and they're going to become curious. People love to buy, but they hate being sold to. So by sharing our experiences, they can then relate, and then they're going to be curious and ask questions. So we're really going to be wanting to keep in mind who our target market is here. So again, if we're talking to everybody, we're talking to nobody. So we really want to be clear about who is it that you're talking to. We talked a little bit about this last week, but I want you to get really clear about those 5 pillars of content and your target market. If you're like struggling to figure out who your target market is, typically it's us, it's you. Whoever you are, that's typically who we're wanting to attract. So get really clear that that's not always the case, but oftentimes it is who we are, is our demographic that we're looking for. So for example, I'm a mom with young kids. My demographic is mom with young kids. So it kind of just get clear on your target market. And then we're going to talk about how we can share our stories. So here's a couple of tips before we get into the specifics of creating stories. Providing value. So in 80% of our content, our posts, our stories, we're wanting to provide value to our audience. Providing value is either educating, inspiring, or entertaining. Like, I don't know about you, but I love a good entertainment post. If you're going to make me laugh, I'm all into it. So that counts. But when you are writing a post, a good question to ask yourself is this educating? Is this inspiring? Or is this providing entertainment? And if it's none of those things, it might be worthwhile to re-look at it and adjust it to be in one of those categories. And this is 80% of the time. So not always. Sometimes we're going to be sharing somebody else's content. Sometimes it's just, something that's in between those. But 80% of the time, you want to be really intentional about providing value to your audience. So a lot of times when we talk about creating content, it's like, what are we going to talk about? What are these ideas? So think of the things that your target market might be curious about. What's something that your target market might Google? And then how could you speak to that? So that sometimes, if you really start thinking, so like my target market is mom with young kids. So what's something that I might Google? Well, how to get my kids to sleep, how to calm my kids down, how to get all the energy out for my kids so that they can sleep better. Like those might be some things that I might Google. And so that might be a good thing to write about for moms is sleep. And so what I would do is I would share a story about how my kids were crazy, wild animals like tonight. And then I rubbed some peas and calming on their feet and I diffused it in their room. And within 5 minutes, they're asleep. Like if that is not magic, I don't know what is. So I'm not selling them anything. I'm sharing my story. Do you feel the difference? So another tip is timing. We talked about this briefly last week too. Be social 5 minutes before posting and 10 to 15 minutes after posting. This is going to cue Instagram that you are utilizing their app, that you are being social, and it's going to cue them to show your post to more people. And engagement. People loved to be asked their opinion. They love to share their opinion. And so if you, in your post, if you ask a question at the end, you're more likely going to be getting engagement from them. So sometimes when you read your post, if you're like, how am I hoping that people will respond to this? If they have nothing to share because you've talked about it all, you've given them all the answers, then they're not going to have an opportunity to engage. So if you can ask some sort of question at the end to offer an olive branch of opportunity for them to respond to you, for them to create an engagement, to create a conversation, that's going to be really helpful. So here are some time savers. So what I really love to do with my content is batch creating content. So those times when you're just kind of like, it just kind of flows. You're in that that time where you can just write forever and it just flows. And then there's other times where it's a bit more stagnant, it's a bit harder. And so utilizing those times where your creative energy is flowing and writing multiple posts at one time. So I use an app called Later to batch write my content, but for years and years, I just kept post ideas in my notes section on my phone. So you can do it whatever way feels best for you, but I really suggest batch writing the content because it's just like setting an alarm for how long you're going to be on social media. It's like you're sitting down with the intention of sharing. You're going to be really focused. I find that my content that I'm creating is much deeper. It's much more authentic. It has purpose behind it and intention when I'm writing it beforehand. So sometimes when I talk to people about batch writing content, they feel like it's less authentic because they're writing it ahead of time. And what I say to that is, it's true for me when I'm writing it, and it's true for me when I'm posting it. And so I don't think that my audience cares whether I wrote this a week ago and this story happened a week ago or if it happened today. It doesn't, it's just like pre-taking photos. But if I have for example, I wrote a post today about being judged on your worst mistake. And I wrote that post probably 3 weeks ago. But when I read it today to post it, it still felt true to me. I tweaked it a little bit. I added a couple little things and then I posted it. But the amount of energy I had to put into it today versus when I wrote it was totally different. It was easeful and it felt good to then engage with people who were commenting on it afterwards. So I really love batch creating the content. Some people do it once a week, like every Sunday night, they set aside an hour and they just write a couple of posts to get prepared for the week. I tend to do it monthly, which is our second time saver. So creating during your spring or summer phases of your cycle. And if you're not cycling anymore, during the waning up to the full moon. So if you haven't heard about this before, this might seem like really crazy, and I'm just going to honor that. But if you've heard about cyclical living, it's basically aligning up the activities that you do with certain phases of your menstrual cycle, and how the energy that you feel in different phases of your menstrual cycle can really support the energy that you're putting out. And so your spring and summer phase is right after your period up until you ovulate. So it's like that first half of your month. And during those two phases, we tend to be very creative. We tend to it just flows out of us. We like new beginnings. It's more easeful to create content. And so during that phase is a really, really great time to just spend an hour or two and batch create your content, because it's going to flow so much easier than when you're in your fall and winter phases, which is after ovulation and when you're on your period. It's just going to take a lot more energy during those phases to write content than it would in your spring and summer. If you're curious more about cyclical living, I have a whole workshop on that as well. So feel free to message me. I'm also doing a workshop on it tomorrow through the Thrive family call at 10 and at 6:30. So feel free to hop on that as well. And I'll be diving deep into what cyclical living is and all about. The last time saver is to notice when your target market is engaged in social media and then post then. This kind of takes some time to tweak. But again, if your demographic, if your target market is you, just start noticing when you naturally are on social media. Is it like in the morning before your kids go to school? Is it during nap time if your kids are younger? Like, just start noticing when is it easy for you to be on social media. And typically your target market is going to be on at a similar time than you. But just start noticing. You can kind of play around with that a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to dig into the meat of it. So storytelling. So this is kind of a formula to work through. So phase one is, what was your life like before? So before Young Living, before the business, before a certain product, before whatever you're telling your story about. Number two, how did you discover a solution? Who told you? Where did you find it? What was the solution to the problem or struggle you were having? Step three, how did you feel after? How did it make a difference for you? What did you notice? And then step four, what is your life like now? What does your future look like because of this change? And what are you looking forward to now? So in this example, you can kind of tell by the photos here, what was your life like before? So this could be a story of somebody who was struggling with hormones, and they could say, before Young Living, I struggled every single month with my cycle. I had crazy PMS. I had cramps. I was totally unable to get out of bed on the first day of my period. And it was awful. I had migraines. I had headaches, sharing what happened before. Then my girlfriend told me about Progessence Vital Plus, and she told me to put on my forearms morning and night. So that was, how did you discover it? And then how did you feel after? And then now I can't even tell when my period's coming. I have no symptoms. It's insane. And I can't believe that has happened. What a shift it has been. And what is your life like now? Now I live free from symptoms. This picture is of somebody who is pregnant. So maybe then that helps create regularity in their cycle, and they were able to conceive again. So you can kind of get a sense of how you can share your story. Now I want you to use this same template for all of your stories. So how you first got involved. So you can do a story with this formula for how did you find out about Young Living, or whatever it is your product or your business is. How did you first get involved? And then you can do it with each product or business testimony. So you can still use the same type of formula. What was your life like before? How did you discover a solution? How did you feel after? And what is your life like now? And so I want us to take a moment here for you guys to actually create content. So I want you to write out a story. I want you to use this template to actually write a story. Because I think that a lot of times like I said at the beginning, we connect into these workshops, we connect into the learning, and we learn all this information, and we're like, that sounds like such a great idea. And we never implement it. So I'm going to give you guys the next 4 minutes to actually write a story. So pick a product. You can do this for your whole story with your business, whatever you want to do, but pick a story. And I want you to share it in this order, in this formula. And I just want you to write it out in your notepad. Okay, so 4 minutes. Okay. So I hope that kind of gave you a good sense of what you could write when you are really intentional, really focused on what you're being asked to write, and you have a time limit. So I give you 4 minutes there. So imagining if you give yourself 10 minutes every single day of intentionally writing content, how much you can actually get done. Right. And so if you see that, like, feel free to screenshot this so that you have a sense of this formula, that when you're like, oh, I don't know what to write, you can kind of come back to this and it can help ground you and get you focused. Now, are there any questions, thoughts, concerns? Feel free to hop off of mute or pop it in the chat. I really want this to be useful for you guys.
Hi, Elaine here. One thing I find hard is like when I'm telling somebody about a product that I'm using and that's how I like it, it always comes back to the price, but it's so expensive. You get that from everybody. Oh, I can get it somewhere else for lots cheaper, or et cetera, et cetera. And it's really hard to overcome that because I don't know about the other product. I only know that I started with Young Living and how I like it. And so obviously I don't put down another company because I don't know anything about it. So I just let them tell me. And sometimes I can persuade them to at least give the product a try. But other times it's like, oh, I can go to Walmart and buy blah, 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 So sometimes I find that sometimes is a struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Who else can relate with Elaine that when they're sharing, and some people will comment on the price. So what I say to that is exactly what you said, Elaine, is I don't know about the other products. All I know is that I tried this one and this is what worked for me. It's really about putting the value and sharing your story in a strong enough way to put the value, to show that the product is worth it. So really focusing on what was that solution for you? So for example, like let's use this solution of hormones. PPP is around $50. Maybe I don't know how quickly you go through it, maybe every 2 months. So let's say $25 a month for this product. And it vastly changed all of the other things that I was buying for symptoms, right? So when you can kind of show the value in what you're sharing, it can be really helpful. And sometimes people just aren't ready, and just honoring where they're at as well. Because the reality is that when people want it, they will find the money to get it. They will sell things in their house. They will cut back somewhere else to make the space for that money when they think it is worth it. So it's just continuing to share your stories of what you've noticed time and time again, how you've experienced it time and time again, because sometimes it takes people a couple of times, what they say, like 7 to 12 times that they need to be exposed to it before that they'll actually see the value in it. So my encouragement would be keep telling your story. Don't let that discourage you, and just know that people are at different stages. Show the value in what you did, and keep doing exactly what you're doing around sharing. Like, I don't know about the products at Walmart, but what I do know is that this product did this for me. And, I trust it, and I wouldn't, compare it to the Walmart version. Okay, you guys, this time goes by so quick. I want to make sure that we are keeping to our 30 minutes. So I want you to keep doing your 20 minutes per day. Set your timer, schedule it in. So I want you to take the next 30 seconds, pop it into your phone, which 20-minute section every single day for the next 7 days. Where are you going to put it in your days? Schedule that 20 minutes in. When you're there, I want you to put your timers on. So put your timer on for your 5 minutes, for your 10 minutes of creating content, your 5 minutes of expanding your network and engagement. And I'm really excited to connect again next week. So let's connect. Make sure you're following me on Instagram. I'm just Megan Marr, or on Facebook, Megan Marr as well. And next week, we are going to be focusing on expanding your network. So have a wonderful, incredible evening, and we will see you guys next Sunday.